No way! That's... You know what this is? This is a box of Hanafuda cards. Yep, Hanafuda. That's how Nintendo started in the 1800s, as a card-making company. And the cards they made were Hanafuda cards. Nowadays, although it's not their main product, they still make them. Why am I telling you this? Well, there's lots of Hanafuda video games out there. I mean a lot of them, for almost every single console. But don't be afraid of these little pieces of paper. Even though it's a Japanese game, folks, I assure you, so before we get into the video games and the gameplay, let me let you in on about 125 years of Hanafuda history. Don't worry, it'll take less than a minute. Card games came to Japan with the Portuguese in the 1500s, and gambling quickly became popular. When Japan began its isolation from the rest of the world, foreign cards were banned, so the Japanese began making their own cards and card games. When the Japanese government began to relax their ban of gambling with cards in the 1700s, Hanafuda came into being. And because Hanafuda doesn't take very long to play like foreign games, and since the cards themselves didn't have any numbers printed on them, they were completely legal. And sure, if people wanted to, they could definitely gamble with them. On the sly, that is. In 1889, Fusajiro Yamauchi started the Nintendo Kabushiki Limited, and produced many versions of Hanafuda cards. And while that's not their bread and butter anymore, the Nintendo Hanafuda brand is still some of the highest quality cards still sold today. There, that wasn't so hard, was it? No, so that you can learn how to play this game, like the title screen said, here's the Hanafuda cards and what they represent. There are 48 cards in a Hanafuda deck. There are 12 suits representing the 12 months of the year, with 4 cards in each suit. Now the main idea of the game is to earn points. Each of the different card sets are worth different points, hence the different pictures that the card represents. The plain flower images are cards that are worth just 1 point, not hard to recognize. The ribbon cards are worth 5 points. The cards with animals on them are worth 10 points. And finally, the remaining 5 cards are worth 20 points. The sake cup is special in that it's worth both 1 point and 10 points. Now, to start the game, you shuffle the cards up. Now, you really can't do this normally very well unless you're very skilled. So, just place them face down, rummage them around a bit, and collect them up. Then you can deal them out. 4 to the dealer, 4 to the other player, and 4 face up on the table. Then 4 more to the dealer, 4 more to the other player, and 4 more face up on the table. Now I'm going to play with all my cards face up, but my opponent, she's going to play normally, and so she'll just keep them in her hand. It's mainly a 2-player game, but really any number of people can play, supposedly, but I just play with 2 people. Now the game starts with the dealer. They choose any card from their hand, and they try to find a card on the table of the same month. If you find one, then you place both cards into a separate face-down pile beside you. Then you take a card from the top of the draw deck and do the same thing. If you can't find a match, then you place that card face up on the table. And anybody can play onto that card as part of their turn now. Then play passes to your opponent. This continues back and forth until someone makes a hand worth points, known as yaku. And the yaku come from the cards that you get from the table, not from the cards that you were dealt in your hand. So you look at the face-down pile next to you, and you try to make one of the following hands. If you get 10 1-point cards, then that's worth 1 point. If you get any 5 ribbon cards, you can get 1 point, plus an extra point for each ribbon card above and beyond those 5. If you get all 3 of the blue ribbon cards or all 3 of the poetry ribbon cards, then that's 6 points. Collecting 5 10-point cards is also worth 1 point, plus an extra point for every 10-point card above those. Now for some of the higher point hands. Collecting 3 20-point cards is worth 6 points. If you also get the guy in the umbrella, in this case Peach, it's worth 8 points. Collecting 4 20-point cards is worth 10 points. And collecting all 5 20-point cards is worth 15 points. Getting the boar, the butterfly, and the deer cards are worth 5 points. Getting the sake cup and the moon are worth 3 points. And getting the sake cup and the curtain are also worth 3 points. Now if you get a yaku, then you win that round. Or you can say koi koi and hope to get even more points later in the round. But be careful, because if your opponent claims a pair after you called koi koi...
Koi koi!
Really? You don't only not get your points, but you lose 5 points. Good game, hun. Now that you know how to play the game, and if you don't, well, yeah. Well, let's go over some Hanafuda video games. So there's lots of different versions of this game, but we'll start with one that you can go out and play right away. Clubhouse games for the Nintendo DS. I'm not going to go too much into it, as you can play this right away, but you can unlock this game when you get to the 4th level just after unlocking Texas Hold'em. There are rules and images of the cards in there as well, so it'll actually be pretty easy to learn and to practice with this version. Now there's lots of Japanese video games of Hanafuda, but we'll get to those in a few.